Hello, everyone. Welcome to Far From Just Words. Today, we are talking about churches, religion, politics, and what all this is about. Growing up, it was a regular occurrence to go to church every Sunday. We had a few churches around. We had the Presbyterian, the Catholic Church, and the Baptist Church. And we had a few, one or two other churches around that weren't that prominent at the time. We had the Seventh Day Adventists. They walked around barefooted. Nobody really cared that much. But as went on, we began having many other churches, which we nicknamed in Cameroon uh, living churches, which in English we could call Protestant churches, Pentecostal churches, right? Pentecostal churches. But these churches were, at the beginning, it didn't seem like a problem because the African society almost seems like after the independence, everyone is fighting to get back themselves. And if there is anything that they could find to attach themselves to that thing that could make sense to them, just somehow, because a lot has been lost along the way. So they would just hang on to those things. But there was not much thinking or rationale going into it. Just hanging in. That was it. That's my knowledge to the thing. Now we can barely live without them. We used to go to church every Sunday. Now the average person has to go to church at least 3 or 4 times a week. Pastors that we used to just call pastors now have a lot of titles: evangelists, prophets, this one, that one, messenger. They're having a lot of titles. It almost seems like a village, a big community. So that brings in a lot of questions. Like, what is this for? What is the rationale behind having a lot of churches in a neighborhood that is not up to 2 million people? Even 2 million is too much. 200 people. You can't walk 2 or 3 meters without seeing a church. But then this is something that is funny with those that became billionaires. They even owned TV stations. You could see your mom and your aunt and other people and your neighbors on the days that they couldn't go to church. They are touching their screens because the pastor or the prophet is telling them to touch your screen and follow some sort of instructions. But as time went on, as I said, I began to ask myself questions like, what is the rationale behind having this many churches? And yet, some of them are billionaires. Yes. And the neighborhoods in which these churches are found, nothing has changed. Now, some of them actually want to get into politics. Some of them are already involved in politics because every time you go on a TV channel in Cameroon, there is either some pastor or some priest that is on a TV channel talking about politics. So it began some kind of connection between that church and politics. Now remember, I keep talking about the church and politics. Some of you might relate to this. It is quite funny when you are asked, are you a Christian? As you grow older. It's a kind of, don't know what to say. Because not because you don't know what to say or you don't know who you are, because it is because you're fighting within yourself to accept something you don't really know anything about, and what you really know about. And the fact that even the word Christianity has been tarnished with people like this and many other things happening in the society. Remember, in most of those churches, who are those sitting at the front desk? There is the lawyer, there is the politician that you know very well has stolen government funds. There is the banker, there is everyone lined up on the front desk is someone of prominence in that community. It happens everywhere. Let's not just say it's an exception on the African continent. But then it doesn't mean that we shouldn't question it. So now we start asking ourselves, what is the church for? Is it for people to show off their new clothes on Sundays? Is it a place for the rich to come and flaunt their wealth and show their new cars and tell and discuss with their friends after church service about how their daughter or their son just graduated from high school and is now about to go to London to study, or those kind of things? Now there is a confusion. Remember what I said. This is the church. That is what I've been talking about. Now, it almost seemed like we weren't talking about the Christian faith anymore. We were more about the pastor, the pastor's wife, or the prophet's wife, the ushers they have, who almost seem like those gate men, where you go to deposit your CV at the company. The gate man is so powerful, more than the CEO of the company. They are so powerful. Yes. It wasn't about the Christianity itself. What it's about. Let me just come from the angle of a layman. Let's just say that I knew nothing about the Bible. I know nothing about quoting the Bible, because it's a fallacy, first of all, to quote anything, even if you're a lawyer, in front of someone who doesn't even have any knowledge of it, right? Now, let's just say I know nothing about the Bible. Isn't it common sense that if we're gathered together in the unity to fellowship under some sort of cult, doesn't it mean that it should favor everyone in it? I'm just asking. Yes, I think yes. Because everyone involved in that community, in that cult, or whatever name that we can brand it with, should benefit from it. Now, it will be contradictory for you to tell me that I will get my payment or benefit from this when I die, while you benefit from it while you're alive. Now I begin to ask myself, you the messenger, did the message change along the way? You are benefiting right here in front of me, but you are telling me to wait till I die and then I can benefit mine. But then there is also something I ask to those that have decided to impoverish themselves in the name of Christianity. I don't think Christianity told anyone to be poor. I don't think Christianity wanted anyone to be poor, because there is a lot of them out there who impoverish themselves, who put themselves through a lot just because they want to look like people who, I don't know where that image came from. It shouldn't be. I think your happiness, your joy, the way you look, your shining should be a manifestation that your faith is working, not looking haggard and shaggy and and what is that evidence that you can share with the other person and say, please join me in this thing? It's a good thing. It's a good. If I have to join you in your business, you have to show me proof of how that business is beneficial to you yourself. I should see you living well. Then you can pull me into it. But when only a few are living off those benefits and the rest of the congregation has to go back to their individual lives with their individual problems, it almost seems like, what God are you praying to? What God did you go and worship in that church? Because remember, I don't want anyone coming after me. I'm talking about the church, not the faith, not the faith, not the Christian faith. I'm talking about the church. Most people almost seem like either they're following the name of the church, or their friend told them about a church, or they were talked into a church. And some people, because of their private problems, have to attend more than 3 churches a week. There is one for your protection. There's one that you go there for worth, for the pastor there to pray for worth. There's the other one that you go every Sunday, that is your normal prominent church that you were introduced to as a child by your parents. So you go there every Sunday, but on to Wednesday you go to this one for protection. On Thursday you go to this one for them to pray for you to have money. My dear, find work. My dear, find work. There is no religion on earth that tells people to go and pray without working. I remember there is a teacher that used to say, if you like, you pray from now to tomorrow. No prayer will write your exam. Go and read. And I'll also make reference to a book I read in high school, The Canterbury Tales, where they talked about the priest that was so fat because he was overeating, and the nun that always went out to buy food for her dog, while at the entrance of the church there were beggars. Do you see how that is funny? Chaucer talked about this like he didn't know that this is something that will exist years and years and decades after and centuries after. He talked about this in the 18th century, and we are now in the 21st century, and it's still the same thing. So the question is, what are all these things about? Is it really necessary? Or are they just a cartel and a kind of cabal that is walking around seeming like they're under some umbrella, but they're just political agents working for themselves and for whomever that created this? So it's high time that my brothers on the continent also have to understand something, that your ancestors introduced you to something. They introduce you to you. Learn about yourself. Learn about who you are. And for the first time, I will say this on camera. If you are born of 2 parents from 2 different regions in Cameroon, that means 2 different parts, and that becomes a reason for which you don't know your vernacular or your mother's tongue, that is a very useless reason. That is the beginning of knowing who you are, which means that the minute I identify you is the day that I hear you talk Batibo. From that time, I identify myself in you, and you identify yourself by the time I reply to you. When we have passed that phase, we move on to the phase of knowing many other things about ourselves, like interpreting and writing down our languages, putting down our languages like alphabets from A to Z, and for children to actually learn about this. You will learn in English in school, like my dad used to say. You will learn in English in school. If that one is, you are not going to run from it. You will learn English or French in the neighborhood, but you will learn about yourself. Because this almost, I would say from my own point of view, almost seems like it's a manifestation of the things we have lost, and being that we already lost ourselves in the beginning of the race. In the beginning, because this was a race and everyone is in front, and we, the Africans, the black Africans, we are behind. That is what it is. Why? Because we are hanging on to things that look like us, or things that seemingly look like ours, but they're not. Because right in front of us we have what is ours, and we can take it back. And you can take your self-confidence, who you, and own it. That is the beginning of everything. I won't talk much. See you next time. Until next time, see you again.